Hey guys, it's Clovis. Recently I grinded all the way from Legend 1 to Ancient 1, mostly picking Crystal Maiden, but whenever Crystal Maiden was banned or the enemy picked it, or the enemy just picked good heroes against it in the first phase, my go-to was Vengeful Spirit. I don't consider myself to be the greatest, most insightful Vengeful Spirit player in the entire world, but Vengeful Spirit has the tools to fit almost any drafts and aspects to her that can be incredibly game-winning, especially in the Legend bracket. In this video, I'd like to discuss how you can pick Vengeful Spirit as a go-to first pick support hero and win games with it more often than not without needing too much practice or thinking too hard about what you're doing outside some simple support stuff. So to quickly talk about Venge and her playstyle, Venge is usually seen as a quite defensive support due to your ability to save an ally with Nether Swap, but for most of the game you should be playing quite aggressive, especially at the very start of the game. It's in Venge's nature to put herself in a precarious position throughout the entire game, regardless of whether you are using Nether Swap defensively or aggressively. Throughout the game, you're going to put yourself in a position where it's very likely you will die. So, what this build focuses on is mitigating that loss, making your death inconsequential as possible despite dying throughout the game. I have quite a high win rate on the hero despite having an average death of at least like 8 or something like that. Quite often I have games where I have 2 kills and 11 deaths and we still win anyways because I'm making the deaths count, and even after dying there's still impact to be had, especially with the illusion, but we'll go on that in a second. So to go into detail on her spells, Magic Missile, the first one, over time has received slight buffs. So historically what high level pub players and even pros have done for like over a year now is getting a first point in Magic Missile and then skipping it in favour of her other spells. And while this is still acceptable, you now can actually get away with maxing her stun first in certain situations. The damage increases significantly, and the difference of a level 1 or level 4 Magic Missile is further emphasised when you consider the likeliness of using Magic Missile a second time on the same target during a fight or gank. The disable duration throughout 2 uses from level 1 to level 4 goes from 3 seconds to 3.6, and the damage of 2 Magic Missiles goes from 200 magic damage to 650, so across a 9-second window you virtually have a level 1 Finger of Death worth of damage if you treat it that way. And this is very good obviously for killing heroes that are squishy. Compare that to a level 1 Magic Missile. If someone can just, like someone like Mirana can just leap out after the stun, you might want to max out the Magic Missile to burst someone down with your team. The thing is though, that's not Venge's only way of dealing lots of damage to enemy targets. While Magic Missile is a good option, what you should be doing most games is maxing Wave of Terror. Even at level 1, you reduce armor by 3 and deal 60 magic damage for a meager 25 mana, so it's actually a really good option for even a level 1 spell, trading in lane. But as the spell scales up, you deal more magic damage, reduce armor even more so, and the cooldown decreases quite significantly, while the mana cost increases only slightly each level, allowing the spell to still be relatively spammable, even more spammable without maxing out your mana pool. Vengeance Aura also allows you and your team to do more physical damage to opponents, but the difference between Wave of Terror and Vengeance Aura is that Wave of Terror is more effective the earlier it's maxed, whereas Vengeance Aura scales based on your ally's base damage and is more effective the later the game goes and the more base damage and attack speed your allies have, and hitting them more often. You can do a lot with the illusion, but that comes in later when you have a 70-second respawn timer, and you have like a full minute of your illusion. If the enemies, they usually don't chase down an illusion if it's moving away, so you can usually get away with farming with it or moving it to a wave and pushing it out. And that usually nets you more farm than you usually get on other support heroes that don't have gold per minute talents, like Venge. Back to the damage bonus though, 30% is still a significant aura, even if you max it in the mid game. And if you're in a situation where you've maxed Wave of Terror already, and you think pushing and fighting with right clicks is more important than maxing out your stun, you can level and start to max Vengeance Aura second after Wave of Terror, no problem. So the last ability we have to talk about is Nether Swap, and this is the spell a lot of players already know as one of the best ultimates in the game that doesn't actually do any damage. It's purely position-based ultimate, but the prime aspect of it is its ability to cancel channeling, especially through magic immunity. First picking Venge already immediately makes some heroes hard to play, such as Enigma, Pudge, Crystal Maiden. Because I play Crystal Maiden a lot, I love picking Venge against Crystal Maiden to really punish it. You can cancel their ultimates with only one of your 2 ult charges, In the case of Enigma and Crystal Maiden, your ult charges restore faster than their ultimates come off cooldown, meaning you pretty much always have at least one charge stored to just get rid of their ultimate completely. And not only that, but you, even without doing that, necessarily positioning yourself 100% of the time to do so, it's always a threat, and it just makes the game extremely difficult for someone like Enigma to play when they know that there's just always the threat of Venge nether swapping them. The other main use for nether swap is saving an ally. Maybe they've been hooked or they've just been chronosphered and you can't cancel the channeling of the disable like you can with Black Hole. Your best option here is to use nether swap to pull your ally out of the chronosphere so they can use their items and spells and be outside of the high cooldown ultimate. You can save allies from a variety of bad scenarios. Back to the hook example, if someone gets hooked and dismembered, it's hard to swap Pudge in to cancel because he's so tanky and he might just cause disruption on the backlines. But if you swap your ally away from him, he's still channeling the ultimate, so you kind of have to use your judgment in scenarios like that. You can save allies from a variety of bad scenarios by pulling them out of a bad position to a relatively safer one. So when your allies are naturally in a bad position, one of the best things you can do at all times is be near your core hero and ready to swap them out of trouble. Always positioning yourself accordingly. Position yourself into a relatively safe spot so that when you swap your ally and save them, they're in a way better position than they used to be. What will happen a lot is you swap an ally out and then they'll all dogpile you while your teammate either TPs out or they turn the fight around when they're in a safer position. Alright, so let's have a look into the skill build and item build that I normally go. So this is a pretty cookie cutter build. You max Wave of Terror first, pretty much do this all games. Depending on the rune spawning is when you take Magic Missile or Wave of Terror. Optimally, you want to take Wave of Terror in lane, so you can use that to harass, you can trade hits better with it against the minus armor, and it doesn't cost a lot of mana, so you can keep using Wave of Terror without chewing through much regen. If you do take Magic Missile first, the only time you should take it is if you're trying to secure a rune. You can stun someone with Magic Missile when the rune spawns, so you can take it. Otherwise, you want to take Wave of Terror all the time. I did discuss before, you can get a second point of Magic Missile early on, but what I've been doing lately is getting Vengeance Aura at level 4, so that I can have that spell max by the time I get level 2 Nether Swap. As you can see, we get Nether Swap at every single level. We always max Wave of Terror first. We always max Vengeance Aura second. And we'll max the stun last. Because we max the stun last, that's why I consider level 2 a bit of an upgrade. If you consider using Magic Missile twice in a fight, that'll bump the damage up from 200 to 350 on the second use. So you do have the option of getting a second point if you want to help burst people down. Otherwise, get your early point in Vengeance Aura so you can max it out earlier, get your whenever. For the talents, you want to get 15% magic resistance. For the item build, what I usually do is go Wand, Tranquil Boots, and 2 Braces. So with the 2 Braces and the 15% magic resistance, your magic resistance goes to just under 50%. And Venge has crazy stats, plus 2.9 strength gain. So across the entire game, you'll carry all this magic resistance with you with a high health pool. So it's just insane. -1 Wave of Terror armor doesn't seem worth it in comparison. If that was -2 or especially -3, I'd probably get it every single game, but -1 just isn't that significant. You're probably going to be building medallions straight away anyways, so you can stack that with your wave to reduce the enemy's armor by -13. The level 15 talent, I take the 15 agility. Around the time you're level 15, you already have most of your spells pretty much maxed, so you kind of want to be going around just hitting buildings, hitting enemies with your plus 15 agility. Venge has this crazy agility gain of 3.8, so even without treads and wraith bands, you just have your natural high agility gain, you get the plus 15 agility talent, you can still dish out some pretty good damage, even as a support that has no damage items. Level 20, most games you take the plus 15 Vengeance Aura damage, that bumps your Vengeance Aura up to 45% bonus damage. That on top of a Vlad's Aura will give all your allies around you 60% damage. And even if you die, you carry the auras with you if your illusion stays alive. If they don't have a hex to instant kill it, and your illusion survives, you just keep it in the fight, and all your allies are getting 60% bonus damage if you have that 45% bonus damage Vengeance Aura and the Vlad's offering. Otherwise, a good option, if you do take the -6 magic missile cooldown, even though you can't spam it a lot, it's a good option against heroes like Centaur, people you want to chain stun, just locking them down. It's very, very good for any team that has a stun as well, because you can initiate with magic missile, have an ally chain a stun, and then use your second magic missile when that expires. And if you have any more stuns than that on the team, you can even just further chain spells. Otherwise, if you don't think you need it necessarily, just take the +15 Vengeance Aura damage because it's huge. Level 25, you want to take Magic Missile Pierce's spell immunity almost all the time. If you took -6 Magic Missile cooldown because you're stomping the game, and then you take +400 Magic Missile damage, so you have 725 damage nuke on a 3-second cooldown that stuns for 1.8 seconds, it's pretty nuts. But even if you took that talent, you might want to Magic Missile Pierce the Spell Immunity talent. That way you have a 60% uptime disable that goes through Magic Immunity. So if you take the -6 Magic Missile cooldown and then Magic Missile Pierce the Spell Immunity, you can stun someone through a 5-second BKB for like 2/3 of the duration, which is just insane. Either way, even if you take the Vengeance Aura talent, I think Magic Missile Pierce's spell immunity is better. By the time you hit level 25, the enemy probably already have BKBs. So I would just recommend taking that talent almost all the time. But yeah. If you do have the -6 Magic Missile cooldown, then consider the option of bursting. It's totally up to you, but I really do recommend that you take 15% magic resistance, +15 agility, +15% vengeance aura damage, and then magic missile pierces spell immunity literally every game. And then the only other items you want to be building into that I haven't mentioned is the Solar Crest. So after you've got your 1 Tranquils and 2 Braces, I go Medallion straight away. Sometimes I'll finish the Medallion before the Braces and then Solar Crest after that. Obviously, the Solar Crest synergizes with Wave of Terror. You can just cast them on the opponents and just shred them to pieces. Even if they're magic immune, you can just your whole team could just right-click the shit out of them. But where I think Solar Crest really shines is buffing it on your ally. So when you go to push, you take buildings. If you consider the Vengeance Aura damage, especially with the talent and especially with the Vlads, you give your ally 80 attack speed on 100% uptime, and their damage is just insane. It's just crazy good. Even the Medallion, if you haven't finished the Solar Crest yet, that combined with Wave of Terror also allows your team to do Roshan extremely quickly. And then after that's finished, I'll go for the Vlads. If my team doesn't already have one, Vladimir's just more damage. Whole team gets armor. I would love to build something like AC on Venge, but the truth is, you don't have a lot of gold throughout the game. You don't have a gold per minute talent. You don't really have damage to farm or anything until way later in the game when the map's open to more fights and stuff like that. So the item build I normally go for is the Wand, Tranquil, 2 Braces, Solar Crest, the Vlads, and they're the only things that I end up building throughout the game. You notice I don't really have anything like Force Staff, Ether Lens. These are quite situational. They're also not as valuable as these other items that I'm building. But honestly, against a lot of matchups where swap is important, you don't actually need those items. It's actually not that often that you need something like a Force Staff. When it's good, you should buy it, but something like Ether Lens, especially rushing it, is just a really gold inefficient way to spend stuff. It makes more sense, in my opinion, buffing your allies by, having your default swap as a threat and an ability to save your allies without extending the range of it. And then using stuff like Solar Crest, your aura, Vlad's aura, with your illusion after you swap and inevitably die, then you can just keep your allies pumped up that way. And basically, the role you want to be playing as Vengeful Spirit is just enabling your carry and allowing your team to do as much damage as possible. And in my opinion, that's the most game-winning way to play Vengeful Spirit. As far as arguing a case for stacking auras rather than prioritizing stuff like Blink Dagger and Ether Lens and Force Staff, what happens quite often late game is you swap yourself in to save an ally and die almost immediately, and a fight breaks out, and it's just too chaotic for the enemies to focus your illusion. Unless they have something like Lion that can just instantly hex it and destroy it, a lot of the time your illusion ends up staying alive throughout the fight, and if you're stacking auras and this illusion stays alive, and you've already swapped in, saved an ally, threw a stun out, waved, and then die instantly, your death becomes almost completely inconsequential. Your initiation of pulling your ally from a bad position to a good one while you throw out the stun and wave before you die, your teammates capitalize off of that, leading to a good fight, leads to your team winning the fight, leads to your team pushing, and the difference of pushing with only a 30% damage aura, because say you bought other like Ether Lens and stuff like that to a build like this, where you take the damage talent and Vlad, so you have a 60% damage aura basically. It just really adds up. You don't get a lot of gold as Vengeful Spirit, so you really need to think about your item choices and what you spend. And positioning items seem to be the least cost efficient ones, as I said before. A lot of the success that I'm having as Venge is winning a fight late game and pushing absurdly fast with 60% bonus damage on all the allies. Even stuff like super creeps, siege creeps, and stuff like that just do crazy amounts of damage even while the fight's going on. It's just absolutely insane. If they don't kill your illusion, it's just nuts. While it makes sense to buy positioning items like Ether Lens and stuff when you're against massive ultimates like Black Hole, sometimes you might be enough of a threat that you have the advantage even without these investments. Even if the enemy don't have hexes, something especially like, yeah, Lion, you also have Disruptor who can glimpse your illusion, or yeah, Shadow Shaman has a hex as well. If they have no way of rapidly killing your illusion after you die, your illusion late game has an unspeakable impact, and even late game luxury items, very, very late game, like Assault Cuirass, if your team doesn't have one and the enemies have no way of instantly killing your illusion, make your illusion such a huge problem that it doesn't even matter if you die. So you can just implement this playstyle where you just trade a kill for a kill, then your illusion just stays with the team and gives them all the benefits that they need apart from being able to never swap when you die. As I mentioned before, this is how a lot of my Venge games go. Just win fights, push, do shit tons of damage, and you can still do the same role as Venge, whether it's saving allies or cancelling ultimates like Black Hole, even without stuff like Ether Lens, Force Staff, and Blink Dagger. So consider this playstyle, consider this build. As I said before at the start of the video, I'm not this insanely good Vengeful Spirit player. Just swap who you think is the best swap target, swap an ally that is imminently going to die, swap an enemy that is going to die if you swap them in instantly without causing too much problems, like, don't swap in an Earthshaker who's going to echo slam your whole team, swap a support with a single target spell who's going to die in a sneeze, so they die instantly. And then as you swap in, you can also stun someone else, so that your team can maybe catch up to them. Simple plays like that, it's really not too difficult to have a big impact as Venge. So early on, play aggressive. Mid game, you want to play aggressive. Even late game, you want to play aggressive. And then you still have the option to save allies with a swap and just completely disrupt the positioning of fights, which a lot of other heroes in the game don't have the ability to do so easily. You can just completely save an ally and pull an enemy into a bad position at the same time when you have two charges. So yeah, hopefully you guys like this Vengeful Spirit guide. Hopefully you guys can win some MMR when you pick it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.